Hey, and welcome to the Wrap Up Live. This is the official Raptors Republic Live postgame show where we dissect. I was about to say dissect. That's how you just know it's late. Where we recap, dissect, and have some fun talking about the latest Raptors game you just watched. And unfortunately, your Raptors were defeated on a Wednesday night, a very late Wednesday night. I mean, technically a Thursday morning, by the LA Clippers 108-100, bringing the Raptors record to 3 games below 500, 32 wins on the season, 35 losses. I'm here with my co-hosts, Oren Weisfeld and Aiden Moss. My name is Sahal Abdi. And yeah, another unfortunate loss, boys. We're here to recap it for you. It's funny, we read a comment that said, I think one of you guys wasn't expecting us to be here to recap this game. But guys,
I don't want to be here.
At least I can speak for... I mean, now I can speak for all of us here. I was going to say I can just speak for Oren, but I can speak for Aiden as well because he's been here during a lot of the losses this season as well. Myself and Oren, we went through that horrible COVID season. But, I mean, losses just don't get any it's very hard to just get used to a team that's just very, very, very average. Oren, I guess we'll start with you. It was a really late night game, like I mentioned, in LA, going up against the Claw, former Raptor. They didn't have Norman Powell tonight, the Clippers. The Raptors came out strong in the beginning, and then, as per usual, things just fell apart. What do you think about the game?
I don't know where to start. Like, this is just a tough one. It's a must-win game for the Raptors. I know we've said that a lot, but like they need to start stringing some wins here. It's a very winnable game because the Clippers have been playing terribly recently, pretty much since the All-Star break and the Russ acquisition. And like, I just want to pull up the stats because the Raptors took 25 more shots than the Clippers, and they lost because they shot 38% from the field, and the Clippers shot 54%. And honestly, I know people are going to want to focus on rotations, and people are going to want to focus on
What's
the
up?
end of the
What's
game.
up with that? What's up with the? It's funny. Maybe I sort of dropped. Maybe I haven't been on Twitter in a while. It's like suddenly everybody's obsessing over certain little aspects. Tonight was
Yeah.
rotations.
Let's get into that. We can get into that later, but I want to just bring up, like, I felt like this game was lost in the first quarter, and I know that sounds weird because they beat them 25-17, but I've just seen this Raptors game too many times where you start off great, you force, I think, 6 turnovers in the quarter. You overwhelm the Clippers with your defense. But instead of like having this killer mentality where you actually pull away and like really create some sort of separation, the Raptors just floundered so many good looks in transition. Their offense outside of transition was terrible in that first quarter. And the fact that they only scored 25 points in that first quarter, like people who watched the quarter, no, the Clippers were handing them the ball. Almost every other possession, it was a live ball turnover. And that's when I was like, okay, the Raptors squandered this chance to take a big lead. We already know the Clippers are going to adjust and play better. And that's what happened. So for me, it was the first quarter that really was so frustrating because the Clippers gave the Raptors a golden opportunity to steal this game. And instead of like having that killer mentality of like, we're going to keep turning you over, we're going to keep punishing you for these turnovers by being smart in transition, we're going to have the offense run smoothly and patiently when we're not in transition. Instead of just playing smart, they played terribly. Or I should say, they didn't punish the Clippers nearly enough.
Aiden, what did you think about the game? What are some things you want to mention as well, if you want to add on to anything Oren was saying, because I know you had something to say earlier.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something similar. Is that they failed to really capitalize on the fact that Westbrook was again kind of sinking the Clippers in that first quarter, and it would have built up a little bit of space when the bench came in and gave us absolutely nothing, which I think it kind of sucks because I was writing about the bench this week, and I was writing about how like we finally have a rotation, we finally have a core four with like kind of Barton being that fourth guy. and how I still lament not having Doughton, which I see the chat's kind of talking about a little bit, and he would have fit in nicely. But yeah, it was just kind of, it was the convergence of those two miserable things, which is that we shot terribly in the first quarter, as we do. We played great defense, which is encouraging, and then the guys kind of come in, and Precious gives us nothing. Boucher's kind of like in his weird funk again, and Gary goes 2 for 11 for the game. And you contrast that with the Clippers, which is like Terrence Mann really just kind of sliced and diced into the lane. It gave the Clippers that kind of up and down game that they needed. Plumlee gave him good minutes. Gordon was fine. Like, I don't know, that to me, there's a lot of other stuff going on, but obviously the bench disappearing once again in combination with our starters just kind of like taking their foot off and on the gas pedal, set us up for failure.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the most kind of disheartening things to watch from this Raptors team tonight was just their lack of urgency, which I sound like a broken record because I've said this so many times on this show. I mean, you look at the massive discrepancy in free throws between both teams, and I'm not even shocked. Normally I would go, oh, well, maybe the refs were just, it's the home team. It is what it is. No, like this was 31 attempted free throws for the Clippers and 14 attempted free throws for the Raptors. And the only time I think that I could confidently say in this game that I watched the Toronto Raptors out physical, that's a word even, out physical the LA Clippers was when Scottie Barnes just decided to just show up late in the fourth quarter. And that's unfortunate. It really is. It's really unfortunate. And I as much as I want to just go down the list and just blame Gary and this and that, the Raptors got like the shot creation, I don't think was really much of an issue. I think it was just the shots weren't falling. Like Gary got a lot of good shots in this game. If you really just go and look at the 11 field goal attempts he took, he makes a lot of those shots. He just wasn't making them tonight. Beyond that, I think the more pressing issue in a game like this was what Oren first mentioned. When a team's handing you the ball early on in the game and you're not taking advantage and you're not going out on that 10, you're not making that deficit 10 instead of you being up 4 or being up 12 instead of up 6, those things matter. Like the Raptors forced a ton of turnovers tonight. 17, I believe, the Clippers had, if I'm reading this correctly, 17 total turnovers. And the Raptors, having 21 points off of that many turnovers is disheartening. It really is. And in the first quarter, guys, I was watching, and the Raptors looked engaged. The OG Anunoby off-ball defense on Kawhi, just denying everything, getting some steals. Pascal looked super energized. Yeah, Fred looked great. There was just the offense looked fantastic until Tyronn Lue, who, I got to give that coach some credit, because if you talk about coaches who can make adjustments, I genuinely think he's top 3 in the league. He proves it every year in the playoffs. He proves it in the regular season. Tyronn Lue is the type of coach that if he calls a timeout and he sees something, you're likely not going to have those same opportunities that you had prior to that timeout as the opposing team. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that the Raptors couldn't adjust when they bogged down, when the Clippers bogged down defensively. They packed the paint for that pick and roll. Jakob Poeltl found himself being surrounded by 3 Clippers all of a sudden. The ball wasn't moving fast enough around the perimeter. I mean, what can you do? It felt like the Raptors they just went back to and this is going to sound very funny, but it was pre-Jakob Poeltl Raptors, where there's just so little clarity offensively of what they want to do. And it just feels like guys are taking turns. It really did. And it's unfortunate that the Raptors just, no matter what they do, they cannot get anything out of Precious Achiuwa. We're used to the Gary Trent Jr. up and down performances, because there are games where he genuinely can win a game for Toronto. But I mean, you're going to need something from beyond that. And this really sucked that you got a game I think it was a non-COVID illness, Oren, for Will Barton, if I'm not mistaken. You needed a guard so bad in this game, so bad, and yeah, it's
That's
unfortunate the
true.
Raptors didn't get that, right?
That's true. And I was on here last game saying, like, why is Jeff Doughton in the G League right now? It makes no sense to me. And then Barton gets this COVID illness, and you have no. I mean, you could have played Malachi Flynn, I guess, but you have no Doughton to play as your ninth man because he's in Mississauga for no reason, because
No
he's done
reason.
everything in the G League that he could possibly do. It just doesn't make sense why he's not just with
And
the
was
team.
already doing it in the NBA too.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, again, a lot of people were fascinating over the rotations tonight. And Thad Young playing the backup 5 minutes, which I agree hasn't worked all season. And not having two shooters on the floor at all time and stuff like that. But like, when we go down this list, okay, you just have to show up and play well. Like, I don't care who you're on the floor with. You just have to like show up and be at least. We're at the point of the season where you can't have these dud games. You at least have to play like your standard. And when you go up at this 9-man rotation, Gary, one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Precious, one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Boucher was good. I don't really agree with Aiden because I thought he was just good throughout.
I think early defensively they were lost. The three of them. But
fair enough. Thad was really bad in his minutes. Fred was good. Pirtle didn't have a good game. I think Zubac pretty clearly outplayed him. Scottie went 6 for 21. I didn't notice that until now, but like, that's unacceptable. I want to talk more about Scottie. OG was good.
Especially considering Scottie's I think he made like 3 or 4 field goal attempts in the fourth quarter. So I don't know, 6 for 21 looks that much worse considering I think the fourth quarter he kind of put the team on his back. So
that's what I want to talk about. But quick, OG was good. Pascal was good in the second half. I thought he was really bad to start. But
Pascal was not good in the fourth quarter or latter part of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but when we talk about, like, I don't know, the problem with this team that I've been saying all season is that they have all these good individual pieces, but it's never as good as the sum of its parts. And like, this was an example of a game where the talent just doesn't make sense compared to like the Clippers bench, even like Batum, Plumlee, Gordon, man, those players aren't like jumping off a page.
Eric Gordon, he's one of the best. I think still he's one of the better bench players in the league. But beyond that, yes, I'm with you.
I guess I want to talk about Scottie though, because 6 for 21 is awful. At the same time, in the fourth quarter, when they made that comeback, it was largely, I was honestly surprised how willing they were to give the ball to Scottie. I don't know if he was the only one with energy or what, but like, guys were just like, okay, Scottie, let's see if you can bring us back in this game. And he tried his hardest. But like, where are you guys with Scottie trying only in the fourth quarter? Because I know it just bothers some people. For other people, it's a good sign because maybe one day he'll do that all game. But yeah, where are you guys with that?
Aiden.
I mean, we were on Scottie's ass earlier in the year because it was kind of this consistent flat effort. I think he's been a lot better defensively, and even in this game, like, I felt like he played not consistently, but generally his energy and his athleticism on the defensive end was good. And he's been like that for quite a while now, and that's kind of like where I really measure his interest in the game. And I think there were a lot of reasons for why he was disengaged early. Some of that is the lineups he's playing with, right? Like when it's him, Pascal, Scottie, when it's him, Pascal, Precious, Boucher, and Gary, and nobody's hitting, like, it's crowded and there's not a lot of room for him to operate. And I think that kind of disheartens him. I also think he's not getting the ball in the right position.
But just to push back on that, like, at the end of the game, it wasn't a spacing matter. He was just shooting and chasing his own rebound and going super hard at it.
Well,
and like, when he could do that all game, theoretically.
That's true, but it's not good offense, and it's like you said, it's almost like they just deferred to him. And I think another thing, and this has to do a little bit with Pirtle, but also has to do with where Pascal is choosing his spots. And I mean, Freddie had a pretty good game as a distributor again. Like he made some incredible passes, but they're not getting Scottie in the spots where he's most dangerous, right? Like part of the aggression that we saw in the fourth quarter is like isolation bullshit from Scottie that I don't love. Like I love the aggression, but I don't love what he's doing with 1:26 left. And I want to see earlier, I want them to be running plays for him, whether that's like him as a screener, him in the high post, him as a ball handler on the screen. Like I want to see more diversity for him. And I don't think they really do that. They don't, it's very haphazard with how they deploy Scottie. And with Pirtle, it's even more difficult for him.
I was going to say, like, as a screener, as a post guy, now that Pirtle is here, he can't really do as much of that stuff. He has to be more on the perimeter.
Yeah, especially because they had some of the smaller guys on Scottie too. Eric Gordon was checking him for a lot of the game, and if I'm not mistaken, Eric Gordon's what, 6'4"? He's not he's not a big guy.
I'll just finish with saying that, like, you know, going back to the rotations, they didn't take Scottie out early like they typically do, and like I think that's one way you kind of avoid this logjam is that like you bring him back in with Gary, and you know I know they like running him with Pascal. Maybe you run him with OG, who's like another spacer. So then you have Gary and OG, and then you have Precious and Boucher as kind of like your front guys. Anything to kind of just give Scottie more space, more like deferral to him is like this. You're the like 1B, 1A guy right now for the next 5 minutes. And they didn't do that tonight. I don't know what was going on with the rotations.
Yeah, for me, a lot of the game. Yeah, that's like everyone's favorite buzzword now, I think, in Raptors Twitter. For me, I was watching this game, and from a macro view, it just looked like the Raptors were just trying to give Scottie developmental reps. They were putting him in different places on the floor, but it felt like in the spots that he was winning, to build off your point, Aiden, the spots that he was winning, they weren't placing him back there. So there was a play where he won in the low post on the elbow on Eric Gordon with a little like that little semi hook shot he does. And the next play, he's ISO dribbling at the top of the key. Like I don't like understand that the Raptors know that, hey, okay, when the high pick and roll with Fred and Pirtle is working, we're gonna keep going back to that and keep going back to that. They shredded Nikola Jokic with it this week, right? Until the Nuggets finally adjusted. So when something's working, the natural instinct is, okay, let's go back to that again and again and again until the team adjusts. And I don't know, the Raptors didn't do that with Scottie Barnes. And I just felt like the more he missed, I was like, okay, maybe this is just like a throwaway game. Just going to give Scottie every opportunity kind of he wants and let him take these fadeaway mid-range shots and just let him do whatever he wants, essentially. But again, that comes back to what I was saying before about clarity. There's no clarity, it felt like, with the offense today. It felt like it's almost like this high pick and roll has been working so well the last couple of weeks with Jakob Poeltl, and then when that goes away, there's nothing else works. Like there's no vision. There's no like, okay, the Clippers aren't good at this, so let's take advantage of that, right? So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say beyond that. I have to. I did it before, but I have to call out Precious Achiuwa, guys. Like it's for me, it's getting to the point where not only do I feel like his confidence has completely flatlined, but I think his teammates' confidence is flatlined. I tweeted that, you know, there was a play, and hopefully Keon's going to get me this clip. I'll post it tomorrow if I can. I genuinely don't care, but it's just they don't even trust him. Pascal Siakam, in a clip that hopefully I can post tomorrow, like I said, they don't trust each other on these drives. You know, Precious Achiuwa gets it top of the key, looks off Pascal, drives really hard to his left, sorry, not to his right, and just loses the ball, retrieves the ball, and Pascal Siakam's just shaking his head like, yeah, Pascal Siakam is shaking his head like, what are we doing? So they've lost complete confidence in him, and I think Precious has lost confidence in himself, and you can see it. And we saw it. I keep mentioning the second half of last season, how Precious Achiuwa, you could see when his confidence is high, he's a totally different player, make smarter plays. But now it's almost like, and I hate to say this, guys, but it's almost like we're watching Precious receive the ball, and we're almost hoping that he doesn't make a mistake. Everyone's holding their breath. So it's very unfortunate, because I think Nick Nurse is counting on him to be one of the main bench guys coming off coming out of the rotation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I want to talk about Precious too, but shout out to Pillsby real quick for the comment. This team has a lot of work to do in the offseason. Cheers for trying to wrap your heads around it. Thank you, Pillsby. Appreciate it. But yeah, I'm writing a story about Precious. That's what I did today for tomorrow. So I definitely want to add to the conversation. And like you're right, the confidence is shot, and he hasn't taken more than 2 threes in a game in like a month now. And for context, last season post All-Star break, he shot 4 a game and he was shooting like 40%. That's when he was really shooting the 3 well. So like he's completely lost faith in his outside shot. There was one play that was really bothering me where he could have just taken a wide open shot at the top of the key. Instead, he passed it off, got it back, and then took like his 1-3. This game was pretty contested. And I was like, just take the easy one. Don't
Doesn't trust himself.
wait
Yeah.
and then take the hard one.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. His teammates also see him at the top of the key wide open. No one's defending him out there, and they don't pass it to him because they don't trust him to take that shot either. So those two things are feeding into each other, I think, in terms of that confidence. It's not a good look. And I think for the story, at least, the interesting part to me for the rest of the season is going to be like Precious played 12 minutes tonight. Where I think Precious is like a litmus test for where this Raptors team prioritizes. Like, do they bench Precious down the stretch and in the playoffs
So,
or
yes.
the play-in or whatever? Or are they
Yeah.
actually going to like care about his development?
They don't have space to bench him. They don't have enough bench. Who are they going to replace his minutes with?
You're right.
nobody else.
But
I
you know what I
mentioned
mean?
this,
He
Aiden,
played
on the
12
last
minutes tonight. Like, are they going to
Yeah.
keep playing him like 12 minutes, or are they going to let him play through mistakes and kind of, you know, care about his development? Or are they just going to be like, nah, we're trying to win every game right now. We're playing the vets. We're playing Will Barton. We're playing Thad Young.
I don't think it's that either or. To me, it's like what's the house saying? Like it's a confidence thing, but it's also like and this is something we talked about all year. It's like an understanding of what your role is. And I think like Precious, there was a point where Precious's role was like to be a little bit more of a spark plug. And when he came back from injury, there was that like maybe 12 game stretch where he actually was becoming that. And now he's lost that touch. And so now he has to redefine his role, which is that like you need to go out there and you work your tail off the same way Boucher does. And when you're open, shoot the goddamn ball. And that's it. Like you don't need to be doing the slicing and dicing that you're doing if you're not comfortable. But you need to know when and where to pick your points.
Yeah. I don't agree though that he doesn't know his role. I think he knows that he is a ball mover, an energy guy. He's not there to, you know, create for himself.
But he's not playing that role. I don't.
But he
think.
took 2 shots
He doesn't
tonight.
look as aggressive.
Yeah, he only took 2 shots tonight. Isn't that what we're saying? His role needs to be that he's more of a ball mover and he's not a real offensive hub. Like he understands that, I think, but his defense is a step slow. And when he does choose to go, like he doesn't have a good understanding of
I'm just saying that like
his spots. And I don't think that's a rule thing. I think that's just like he's still learning the game thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of those things. I'm just saying that I think part of the passivity is that like he thinks the expectations are for him to do things that he's no longer confident doing. Whereas like the expectations are really like just go pound the glass and play good defense and everything else will be Gucci, you know? Like and if you go 0 for 4 from 3, so be it. Like we're okay with you shooting those open shots instead of hesitating. That's all I'm saying.
So this is the question. No, go ahead. Finish off your thought.
I was just gonna say I agree with you. Like long term, this is an issue. Like you know, as much as I've loved Pirtle's addition, like now this logjam of like Scottie, Pascal, Precious, and Pirtle is concerning.
So the question now I pose, and this is a question that for me is becoming bigger and bigger as the season goes along, especially with the losses. I talked about this, I think, with you, Oren. I don't know if it was the last show or the one prior to that. The only alternative to playing Precious less, I think, is playing Pirtle more, because Precious is the clear backup five in this offense, right? So
Yeah.
do you play, like, if you know Precious is going to consistently, and that's what he's been doing, if we're being honest, he's been consistently giving the Raptors negative minutes, right? He's been a negative on the floor. If he's going to consistently do that, at what point do you say, especially because I know the goal for this team is clearly to make the playoffs, right? Like, they're not, this isn't a tanking team, right? They made that clear at the deadline. So now, at what point do you say, okay, now we're going to up Pirtle's minutes from that 28 to 30 mark to that mid 30 mark where he's maybe at 33, 34, 35, and sacrifice some of those developmental minutes for Precious? Like, at what point do you say that? Because at the end of the day, Precious is going to play, whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, it is what it is. But Precious, to me, he's the clear sore thumb, especially off the bench, right? We can expect maybe Gary to bounce back versus the Lakers on a Friday night. We can expect some of these guys, Will Barton, maybe if he's not, if he comes back from that illness, to make somewhat of an impact. But I think, at what point do you guys say things need to change and maybe you need to sacrifice some of those Precious minutes for maybe Pirtle?
Yeah, I'll get to this incredible tweet in a second. But last thing on Precious, I just want to say, like, it's not all bad in the sense of, weirdly enough, when Precious has played beside a center, he's been very positive. The minutes with him and Pirtle have been great. The minutes with him and Koloko or Thad have been great. So here's a wild idea. And I'm not even saying I'm in favor of any of these ideas, but like, him at the 5 hasn't worked this season for whatever reason. It's really weird because it worked last season. Okay, the only Precious minutes at the 5 that have worked is with the starters. So either you start him and bring Pirtle off the bench. I'm not saying I would do this. That's crazy. But you know what I mean? Like, he needs to be surrounded with all those wings in order for him to work at the 5. Or bring Koloko up. Try them together off the bench, like in certain matchups. Something like that. But I think there are more minutes to be found for him at the 4. Like I said, those minutes have largely been positive because he's a much better defender in space than he is at the rim right now. But yeah, they can't just keep playing him in these heavy bench units at the 5 and asking him to anchor the defense, because it hasn't worked all season. It's not just going to start working now.
He also,
Yeah.
on the rotation piece, they left him with Zubats way too long. Like, that's when you could play Pirtle more minutes, is when he's matching up against the big. But last point is, I think Precious also needs a point guard with him. And that's another problem with not having that second guard off the bench to kind of like direct things and run him in pick and rolls and stuff, is that like you're leaving kind of Precious hanging in those moments.
Yeah.
Let's
sure. Get to this tweet because I actually think it's really interesting. Because we talked about it. So for the listeners, Sal, you want to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. So it's Michael Grange from Sportsnet. He tweeted, Fred VanVleet just unloaded. And again, for our podcast listeners, he put a caps lock on unloaded. So we know he unloaded big time. Unloaded post-game on the officiating, 31-14 in free throws in favor of the Clippers. Fred VanVleet called out Ben Taylor in particular and said, quote, "I'll take the fine," end quote. And then went off and then stormed off. So that's the tweet. Fred VanVleet just kind of lost it on the officials and particularly called out Ben Taylor. So and the fact that he said, "I'll take the fine," means he'll definitely. I mean, he's gonna read that and go, "Okay, here we go. Into the bank account you go." So I don't know. I don't know if I agree. I just feel like
I
the
don't
Clippers
agree.
Were way more physical than the Raptors.
I think what you said earlier is absolutely true. Like, the Clippers dominated the paint, and like even Pascal, my frustration with him this game was that he was just taking jumpers. He wasn't even trying to get into the paint. So to me, the interesting part of this is just like, it feels like a level of frustration is building up, because for Fred in particular, if you're objectively like gonna call out the refs, wouldn't you do it after last game when they absolutely screwed you at the end? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that he did it in this game just feels much more of like a frustration thing. Everything's going wrong than it is like okay, it's time to get at the refs in order to help us like going forward, like a strategic thing.
For sure. It's also one of those things that I feel like it's just piling up for the Raptors at this point. Like, you're coming off the Denver loss and all Raptors fans are going crazy, and there's tons of articles that came out and, mentioned the referees, and I didn't even know referees could be interviewed after games. Like, maybe I'm just a basketball noob, but what's his name? What's Scott
Yeah,
Foster?
They always
He
do
was-
if it's like a big like call at the end.
Yeah, so he was interviewed after the Denver game, said what he had to say. So I feel like this is all just piling on, and Fred is just now they're on this Western Conference road trip, and it's still not over. They got the Lakers, like I said, on Friday night, so they're staying in LA. And I mean, yeah, I don't agree with you, Fred. I'm sorry. I just don't agree with you. I think top down, the Clippers were way more physical than the Raptors. The Raptors bench absolutely themselves in this game. So, Aiden, what did you think about Fred's comments at the end?
I think there was. I don't think it was like terribly egregious. Definitely not like the Denver game. And yeah, I think you guys got it right. He's just he's frustrated. That was just
It's
a
just
bad
all
loss.
frustration, for sure. I don't really have anything else to add to this game. I mean,
we should
one
get
thing
out of
I'd
here.
love to see on Friday night is some sort of change. I know people are going to mention the rotation, but I want to see something. Like Oren said, if it's precious at the 4, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious watching the end of this season, what happens in the clutch with the Raptors offense, because they're going away from Pascal recently and they're starting to go more towards Scottie. And I think that's an interesting development, and I'm curious to see how it goes going forward.
For sure. We'll wrap it up there. Again, another very unfortunate loss for your Toronto Raptors. They lost the game tonight versus the LA Clippers, 108-100, breaking the Raptors record 3 games below 500, 32 wins and 35 losses on the season. Before you guys leave us tonight, we need you to subscribe to our Raptors Republic YouTube as well as our podcast channel, The Rapcast. This was the Wrap Up Live, your official Raptors Republic post-game live show. With myself, Sahal Abdi, Oren Weisfeld, Aiden Moss. We'll see you guys on Friday night versus the Lakers. Everyone loves Lakers games. Unfortunately for my East Coast people, it's another late game, and we're going to be up and we're going to be exhausted. The good thing is it's a Friday night, so that maybe that helps a little more. We loved having each and every one of you guys spend time with us. Enjoy whatever you could enjoy from a game after like this. I mean, normally I say enjoy the win when they come off a win, but I mean, enjoy the Lakers with no LeBron coming up on Friday night. We'll see you guys soon. We're going to be here after every night, guys. Like, this is just it at this point. Like, I know you guys are shocked that we're here after terrible losses like this, but myself, Aiden, and Oren are going to be here most nights to break it down for you. Other than that, you guys have any last words?
Good night.
There we go.